All right, thanks everyone for coming out tonight. It's good to see a good-sized crowd. A couple of things to this thing moves, you know that?
Yeah.
It really. We're going to cover a lot of things. I want to just kind of cut to the chase and tell you what to expect. At any time, if you get lost, please hand up or even just interrupt. It doesn't matter. We want you to understand, and so it's all going to be new, a little bit fast, but that's not to say that you can't jump in and be a part of it. It is interactive. If we get stuck on one point, we can discuss it. I mean, it's, what I'm saying, the point is comprehension. So don't feel like I don't want you to understand because everyone else seems to understand, but me, I don't understand. Just don't think that. It's going to be more of a learning environment tonight, kind of like a yeshiva night. I was describing to Sydney. So imagine that what we're doing is class educational, interactive, kind of unprofessional in a certain respect. You know what I'm saying? We're going to learn like a classroom setting. So that's where I'm coming at in my headspace. So a big thanks once again, Sydney Senior and Junior, for having me out. A big thanks to you. With that said, I'm going to check my notes a lot, just so you know. Some of the things that I want to cover, I'm going to start off with an analogy, okay? We hear in Torah, this thing really does move. We hear a lot of things in Torah that I'm sure you've heard them as well, and it tends to go over people's heads because we don't assume that there's meaning in what we say. Now that sounds like a very cliche, trite thing I just said, but let's put it to the test. How many of us have heard that Torah is like water? Raise your hands good and high. Okay, so it's not that cliche and trite already. Now, what does that mean? Torah is like water. Anyone? That's right. It's about 90% of you are going to give that analogy. Is that correct? And does anybody have an alternative meaning?
Yes, it stagnates actually causes the Dead Sea.
Again, a little louder.
If it stagnates, it doesn't flow through.
Okay.
It actually brings death like the Dead Sea.
Anyone else? Cleansing, life. Can we go a little deeper? So here's what I'm thinking. Now, this is not to say that I have the answer and you don't, or this guy here has the answer and these people don't. I'm saying let's introduce the concept of depth, yeah, and that there's never not depth in Torah. That again sounds cliche and trite, but if I had to summarize all of people's pushback or negativity in the work that I do, it's that they are under the assumption that Torah is shallow and not deep. You see my problem? So we get into law issues. How many of you are aware of the Rambam? Okay. So is the Rambam light or deep? What do you think? Deep? I think he's deep too. But most people in certain circles, which is many circles, have the assumption the Rambam is not deep. Therefore, if we read the Rambam as not deep but shallow, that can create some problems and confusion. Wouldn't you agree? So therefore, you would have to assume that if it's deep, it would require a certain type of scholarship. Agreed?
Yeah.
So that's what I want to say with this analogy about water. Can we say the Torah, when it is compared to water, what water? Which water?
Living water.
Living water. As in, not the faucet? Yes or no? So not the faucet. So how many of you, when we started this talk 2.5 minutes ago, when I said Torah is like water, how many of you thought of living water versus the faucet? Which water were you thinking of? I want to know. Living water. Like a river. Okay, but in terms of the components of that water, how is that water to be looked at? What is living water? Deeper. What if I took a sample of that water and tested it scientifically? on. That's what I want to get to. See the difference? There's a way of viewing this analogy. Organisms, like real microscopic life. So now let's go back full 360. When we say Torah is like water, look at what we've achieved. We went through the faucet, no. Flowing, no. Alive, a little deeper. Now we're at microscopic organisms, like a whole world in there. And if we say that's what Torah is like, then when we look at surface level Torah, pun intended, then if we are to believe that Torah is like water, should we not believe that there's a whole life of many organisms in the Torah, so to speak? But people don't think that. They want to go back to the trite cliche, yeah, Torah's like water, and then even if they get to the whole it flows or life, the mind reverts back to it's just faucet, but it's God's faucet in a river or something. It loses that punch. So now when we talk about the Rambam, can you imagine a little bit more about the depth of something like the Rambam if we analyze it, Torah, water, the sea, microscopic organisms, there's stuff in the Rambam. Is that correct? So if we're going to learn the Torah on that level, that requires a different focus than keeping its surface level understandings. Is that correct? That's what I want to hopefully get into tonight. Is that a good, decent introduction of where we're going?
We're going to do weight.
What's that?
We're going to do weight.
That's for sure. I'm going to introduce a lot of new things. It might be a little bit fast in the Hebrew language. Let it go. Let it happen. And this is from experience. I know it works. When people latch on tight, they think that if they miss what I'm saying, I'm not going to go back, and you're going to miss it, you're going to get behind, and then you ended up wasting a night. It's not true. I repeat and I'm repetitive because that's what Torah is. It's consciousness. By definition, I will keep repeating and going over the same points over and over again. So I'm asking for one night, let it go. If you have a regimen of study, we're going to try something a little different tonight. Okay? So don't try to hold on. Let it happen. And when you reflect, when it's done, that's the time that you look at what you've learned. All right? So let's start. All right, we gave the little analogy, and what I'm going to focus on, I'm going to call you Sid Senior. I don't know if that's what they call you. That's what I'm going to call you. So,
Okay.
just not me. Huh?
Old man.
Too many words.
Yeah. So senior and junior, whatever it is. So that's just in my mind to keep it fresh. I didn't know what the talk was going to be about. I've been on the road, as you know, traveling. I got an email just saying that we were going to talk about Purim and the Ger. But as it usually runs, when you get on the ground in real time, you find out the real story. So I didn't see you. You didn't see me. Now I didn't see the place. We didn't know anything. But now that I'm here and having spoken with Sid Senior about some certain things and asking the right questions, I know where I want to take the class. And where I want to take the class, we spoke at dinner over Exodus chapter 12, verses 43 through 49. You didn't say that. I added that. So as I'm preparing it, when you were walking in, when the analogy came to me about the sea, because I'll read you the English, okay, just so you can hear what I'm thinking. I'll read it kind of fast because it's English, we don't want to waste time. And I'll even change the inflection of my voice on the words I want you to pick up on, the words that you and I discussed, for example. And in the background of our minds, I want you to constantly allow yourself to return to the following thing. In Hebrew, you call that an inyan. It's a thing, a proper thing.
Indian or Indian?
Inyan. Who is the ger in the Torah? Yeah. Where and why do they fit in? To convert or not convert? Okay. Can you sense where I'm going with this? There's a ger in the Torah. I don't know what a ger is. Again, what I say, where is he in the Torah? Why is he in the Torah? What's his place in Judaism? How does it fit? And the non-convert is a paradigm shift. You go into a traditional Jewish venue, and what they would phrase that topic is, does this person convert or not convert? They're actually not related, but life has made them related. You understand what I'm telling you? Yeah? No? Yeah? Right? So, a lot of oscillation will take place tonight. And again, allow your mind to oscillate with me, and I will oscillate a lot. If I go out what appears to be a tangent or bunny trail, that's not a happenstance. It's called an oscillation. So, oscillate. Hashem said to Moses and Aaron, again, chapter 12, verses 43. I don't know if you have art scrolls available to you in front of you. I guess not. But so follow me. This is concerning the Passover offering, right? Now already, I'm picking up on a problem, not with you, just in general. What's the problem? Can you sense there's a problem? That's a good problem. We're looking if Torah is like water, and water has a surface level, right? And we were saying the Torah is like the sea. Can you already sense that English was keeping us shallow and out of that sea? Already, like if you allow yourself to be sensitive to it, look how it starts. Hashem said to Moses and Aaron that it's kicking us out. It's making us on the surface, as if to say there is no greater life of the water here. Can you sense that? Can you feel it? Chapter 12, verse 43 through 49, we're going to go. This is the decree of the Pesach offering. No alienated person may eat it. Every slave of a man who was bought for money, you shall circumcise him, then he may eat it. A sojourner and a hired laborer may not eat it. In one house shall it be eaten. You shall not remove any of the meat from the house to the outside, and you shall not break a bone in it. The entire assembly of Israel shall perform it. When a proselyte sojourns among you, he shall make the Pesach offering for Hashem. Each of his males shall be circumcised, and then he may draw near to perform it, and he shall be like the native of the land. No uncircumcised male may eat of it. One law shall there be for the native and the proselyte who lives among you. Then I'll just finish the chapter. All the children of Israel did as Hashem had commanded Moses and Aaron, so did they do. It happened on that very day, Hashem took the children of Israel out of the land of Egypt in their legions. What do you think?
Confusing.
Huh?
Confusing.
Why?
Terminology.
Yeah, do you guys agree with this or disagree? Go ahead and say it. Go ahead. He says, confusing because of terminology. Thoughts? Yes? No? Yeah. Raise your hand if you were perceiving the terminology, that there was somehow a terminology in there. Raise your hand high if you did. High, so I can see. So about half the group sensed there was a terminology thing going on. And the other half, what did you sense? Just too vague, too flowy? We can already see the analogy of the water, right? There's definitely water going on, a surface tension. And then some people are saying that there's life under the surface. But it's too thick and dense and dark to get a sense of that reality. Is that correct? Yeah? All right.
Yeah, because I hear the word alienated.
Right.
Alienated was out of its in body accepted a heat.
Right. So everyone hear that? Okay, so let's now point out some like roadmap signs of what we're looking at here. We're reading the Hebrew text in English language. Is that clear? we are reading in English written by a group of rabbis called Rabbi Arthur Scroll. Is that all? Keep that in mind. Ostensibly, there's Hebrew text on the other side. We're aware of that as well. Then there's another funny Hebrew next to it, whatever that is. We'll explain, right? But already it's probably too much for most people to keep up with all of these different moving parts. Then there's a really funny script beneath the Hebrew script, which whether that's been pointed out to you or not, but that's Rashi. And who's Rashi? Anyone not know who Rashi is? Everyone knows? So a medieval Torah commentator, whatever that is, he's there in his strange lettered Hebrew text that we can't read. Then we have excerpts of Rabbi Art Scroll here, numbers 42 through 48, describing to us a little bit about, I guess, the terminology in this draconian English language. Is that a safe assumption to pick it apart on that level? So, where does one start? And I want to hear how do you start? Where do you go? What do you do? When we get to this, what do you do? Raise your hand. Go ahead and tell me what you do. With all these things put together, what do you do to get through this text?
I normally take a couple of versions, different editions, see what this one translates to.
Yeah, so you want to compare.
Just to see
Right.
what did this guy translated as what he translated.
That's good. So you're trying to basically get through the vulgarity, vulgar meaning unclear language, and to decipher the terminology.
Then I asked to be very clear on mine.
Yeah, which is an even worse clip, huh? Because modern Hebrew will only get you more confused. Why don't you tell us what lo nachon means?
Not right.
That's what you think. But in biblical Hebrew, it means not ripe. Big difference.
Not right.
Ripe doesn't mean not right in biblical Hebrew. So when Ramban says that Rashi is lo nachon, he's not saying he's wrong. He's saying, you're right, but you should dig a little deeper. See, even you learned something today. Which is no small feat teaching an Israeli. Anybody else have a technique of how you're going to approach this? Is it in another couple of, whatever it is, where I guess we're here now. Go ahead.
Yes, I would look at Peshat, Emes, Bruch, and Soy. I would break it down, the Gematria, I would break up the words.
So what you guys are telling me is you give zero respect to the art scroll itself. You want to get out of the art scroll ASAP is what I'm getting from you guys. Is that true? That's what I'm hearing. You want to compare text. You want to go Kabbalah over here. No one's actually getting into the art scroll text.
Another thing I will do is I will try to find verses that got the same terminology in other places.
How do you find those verses? What tools do you use?
Oh,
Google.
Rabbi Google prevails.
anything that can help me find.
So you're being resourceful.
Little phrases.
Yeah.
You can see they appear in other places also. Maybe then what's the context there? Is maybe similar. Can I glean from there more?
Right. Anybody else?
But that's what the Emes is.
I directly got down, within the Torah, I got down to the commentary at the bottom, just about to start reading there. That
Yeah.
sounds,
And does that help in the end, or only confuse you more?
sometimes it confuses me more,
Right.
but most of the time it helps a lot to start with the starting point.
So what I'm getting is that this room is no different than every other room. And that is that you guys are trying to get the story straight and clear. And you're actually using like textual analysis as the program that you're running, and you're trying to get through the story. And it seems that the consensus is that Rabbi Scroll's not helping that cause. He's allowing you really nothing. Because you can get the translation, as you said, from other places. You're going Kabbalistic, you're ignoring his commentary. You're reading the commentary but getting lost in it. And you're trying to use the commentary to springboard out of it to find other commentary and other text. Right? So no one has basically bought into this one book. You're saying that there are other books and other references and resources that you are pioneering in to weave together the story of our lives that everyone's trying to get. Is that a safe assumption?
Yeah, but I would say that we've noticed that the translation isn't as clear as it should be.
Right.
And we're trying to get a better understanding because the English language isn't as good as the Hebrew. It doesn't have the same physical and
Right.
and it isn't.
So everyone's picked up on this kind of task, that the translation's probably not right, the tools on the page are not exactly right, and that there are other tools available, and we're all trying to basically, again, find the golden path of understanding the story. Is that a safe assumption? Do you think you're unique? Do you know that there's a lot of people like you? This is going on worldwide. I mean, from my bird's eye, view of the world, this is what I work with. This is what's going on with 7 billion, however many billion we're at, people on the planet. This is all that's going on. And it seems like everyone knows this except for certain people on the front lines that are pushing Art Scroll as the new gospel, so to speak. This is pun intended almost, right? That this is all there is. This is what it is. This is all there is, and they're not going off of it. They're harping on this is all that there is, when it's just simply not true. And I think you guys are trying to discover that.
Yeah.
So let's start to break the surface tension and get into what it is. Yeah.
But Rabbi, sometimes it's difficult enough to try and understand the own language, like the Hebrew or the English or whatever else it is. So, when you read something, you read it from a reference point. And my reference point is where I grew up with my culture.
Right.
Which immediately creates a problem because the culture's time already differs
Right.
in magnitude.
Right.
So we've got that problem as well.
Exactly. So what's really going on? There are two camps going on simultaneously. There's the Jewish camp and the not Jewish camp. The Jewish camp, for lack of time or whatever, we'll just say they're not doing what you're doing. They don't feel a need to do it. It never occurred to them to do it. They're not doing it. Their questions are completely different. Their agenda is completely different. Their mission is completely different. They probably can't even articulate what the mission is, what their drive is. And with the non-Jews of this planet, maybe I'm off on this, but it seems to me that there is a global united front, and I mean that, trying to understand the story, and linguistics are the starting point and the most crucial point of kind of like the genre of how to attack the Bible. Yeah? And I've never made more enemies in my life than telling a Jew to become a linguist. They don't. That's like the plague for them. Linguistics. And you see, the non-Jews, that's like their saving grace. They want to get into the linguistic element to understand the story. Okay, so we've made a very clear path now. Is that agreed? So let's then delve into that aspect. Okay? There's where we're going to do a lot of oscillations and different directions, and feel free to interject. Let's just start random. Again, we have the English text, we have the Hebrew text, we have the funny Hebrew text next to it. Does anyone know what that funny Hebrew text next to it is? Targum. Onkelos. Does anyone know who or what Onkelos is doing? Not exactly, but if he was translating, explain that.
He's putting it into common speech.
Which language?
Aramaic.
Correct. So now that opens up. Here he said, there's a commentary by Onkelos. What was Onkelos?
Convert,
It was a convert or a ger? He was a ger, not a convert. Number one, big shocker, right?
Yeah.
Boom. So he's putting his commentary into Aramaic.
Sure.
Aramaic, it was, I guess you could almost say it was like the Latin of its day, like the scholarly I guess you just call it the scholarly language, because if Hebrew was sensitive to private academies, or if it's going to lose its knowledge base, so Aramaic, even if it wasn't that much of like a spoken language, like we know today, it was very similar to what we would call Latin, in that it was a scholarly language. You understand? Like Latin, even though people spoke it, maybe even still do speak it to some extent in the academies of academia, but it's a scholarly language. English was invented to get us out of the scholarly aspect. So Aramaic has retained the scholarly element to it, and that's why the Onkelos commentary is like that. It's not a translation at all. It's actually more appropriately a commentary that has translation facets to it. How many scholars do you think are fluent or even interested in learning the Aramaic of Onkelos on the Parshiot? Hardly any. I don't even know if I've ever met one. So you see, look at the irony. Art Scroll's giving you the translation, the commentary, the most classic of all classics, and no one even bothers to look at it. For example, when we mention the proselyte who sojourns among you, and again, we're going to oscillate right now, okay? So go to verse 48. When a proselyte sojourns among you, he shall make the Pesach offering for Hashem. Blah, blah, blah. Let's now look at the Hebrew. The ki yagur idcha ger va'asa Pesach laHashem. And when a ger will ger with you, right, then you'll make the Passover offering to Hashem. The question that you're asking yourselves is pretty obvious and clear. What's the obvious and clear question? Let's hear it. Huh? Louder, let's go. What is this ger who's gering with you? Yeah, so right? Just like cut to the chase, what's this ger thing going on? That's the question. So now the Aramaic is going to say the are yizgayer imach giora v'yabad pischa kadam Hashem. That's already well beyond 99.9% of this planet. But let's look at what Art Scroll says. Yeah? Ger. So already we see our question is enough interesting to Art Scroll. They're going to answer our question. We should throw a little party with little party hats and light some what do you call them, sparklers. Proselyte. Is a ger a proselyte? What is a proselyte?
Becoming Jew.
Convert, becoming Jewish.
Follower.
Huh?
Follower.
A follower. The word, as I researched it, it's been a little while since I got into it. From what I remember and teach from, proselyte is Greek, which means ger toshav in literal Greek. So not only is it not convert, it actually is the right word, that then Art Scroll gets it wrong by describing it as a convert. Let's look and see if that's what Rabbi Scroll does. This is one of the many passages in which the Torah requires that proselytes be treated as equals with all other Jews. Even though their ancestors did not emerge from Egypt, they have become full-fledged Jews, and provided they circumcise themselves and their children, they bring the offering along with all other Jews. Can anyone tell me of the obvious problems, or if there are no problems with this, what they would be?
Convert is a Jew.
A convert is a Jew. What are you trying to hint at?
Here they're making it say that you're called something else, even after you convert.
So that's a problem, isn't it? You hear the problem? I caught more of a deeper problem. They have become full-fledged Jews, provided they circumcise themselves and their children. Well, how else, pray tell, would you become a Jew if not through that? So you're saying they're Jewish if they circumcise. Duh. Is there another kind of Jewish convert I'm unaware of? So we have a lot of problems here. So this is what you said, right? We're reading the commentary, and I think we're only worse off than before we started. And no one ever thought to check the Aramaic, which says, Yis gayer imach giora, which means, if a ger gered with you. Then now it's only one question. What is ger? And that's what I get asked every day of my life with this word. Rabbi Katz, can you tell me what a ger is? No, I can't. There's like 20 billion kinds of ger. Which one are you referring to? So that's what the Onkelos is saying. He's saying, well, let's not get into this right now, but when a ger gers with you, let him in. And our scroll just takes it on a whole different level and sandwiches a whole bunch of things that don't go together. Right? It's like ordering a pizza with like a chocolate cake on it and like a ribeye steak and a cherry on top. It doesn't make any sense. So now we just have chaos. Rashi, let's look at Rashi. If we were to be brave and look in the Hebrew text of Rashi, what does Rashi highlight in the verse? Make a Passover offering. So Art Scroll is attempting to answer what is a ger. The English is calling it proselyte who sojourns, already an oxymoron. And the Rashi is saying, or highlighting, or focusing on making the Passover offering. And Onkelos is gearing gers with us. So there's no continuity here. Huh?
No wonder we are so confused.
No, that's my job, is to unconfuse. And then people say, Rabbi Katz, you're confusing us. Well, I'm just letting you know how confused you already are. Once we admit that we're confused, I can then do my work. Because when they ask me what a ger toshav is, they already got the answer. Then why'd you ask me? But if you really want to know, then I can begin to tell you. So let's read Rashi. Making the Passover. Yachul kol hamizgayer yasa pesach miyad. Talmud lomar v'haya ke'ezrach ha'aretz ma ezrach be'yudalid af ger be'yudalid. You might think all that become ger should make the Passover offering immediately. This is coming to teach us that like the native Jew of the land, just like the native Jew on the 14th of Nisan, even the ger on the 14th of Nisan. Completely different thing than what everybody else is talking about. And no one has thought to string together these ideas and make them clear. So we can start then by getting the terminology correct. Right? So now, if we were to be diligent in our work, look at the words that we can look up now. So I'm just scanning. Okay. Pesach offering. We don't really know what that is. So let's stop lying to ourselves and go look it up. That would be number one, wouldn't it? If Rashi is saying, you might have thought, but really it was this guy, the 14th of Nisan, and then he geared out, Well, hold on a second. I thought I knew what the Passover offering was. Turns out I don't. So this is a big problem in learning. Everyone assumes that they don't want to be the one that looks stupid not knowing what the Passover offering is. Because everyone knows what Passover offering is. 99.9% of the people you will talk to have no clue what the Pesach offering is. So you're not dumb. You're like everybody else in the 99.9%. It's just some people admit it, some people don't. Most don't. So you can start there by admitting that you don't even know the Passover offering. And no one does. I don't care if you've learned it 100 times. There's new components all the time that come in that require you to keep looking it up. That's academics 101. So just the I don't know how you say it in English, the chinuch, like the educational philosophy is missing from the equation. Do you see how much is missing from the story already? Is that clear? This is what has to come back to get the story straight. So you're on the path. And bravo to you for being on the path. But people are not aware, because there's a lack of leadership, to let people know how to get that path cultivated and what it entails. And it's not I'm not on the level type of thing. It's more that we go back to our analogy of the water. We assume it's faucet water, at best flowing water. Are any of us competent enough to analyze a drop of seawater under a microscope? I'm not. But for the fact that we're not, we can assume there's a lot of things going on. And they still have not mastered the drop of water. There's endless things to figure out. Remember we said the Rambam is not simple. And if we analyze the text, we can find a whole bunch of stuff. Oh, I think I proved that point already tonight. Is that agreed? This thing moves, just so you know.
It's the wheels within wheels.
That's it. The angels are like Ophanim. Oh, sorry, I won't lean on it.
Just don't go out the door, that's all.
Yeah. So now, let's just keep going over these terms. Ready? Just again. The Pesach offering. Now I think our guilt level went down a little bit, right? And the intellectual honesty and curiosity went up a couple notches, right? No alienated person. Spooky. Who is our alien friend among us?
Is that the Mexicans?
No, we built a wall if you weren't paying attention. So what is the alien? The Ben Necher. That's an interesting one. What is a Ben Necher? Huh? What's a Gentile? But aren't there many kinds of Gentiles? More terminology. Goy, Akum, Nachri, Ben Necher, Ben Hanecher, Ger, Ger Toshav, Ger Tzedek, Toshav, Sachir. Which one are you? I don't know. I thought you said you were Gentiles. So now there's no such thing as a Gentile. English term that has, on the surface level, it has no meaning. Throw it out. So the whole premise of my book that I came on this year, to introduce that now, it's called Od Yisrael Yosef Ben Ichai. There's an English translation that I did. Sidney Jr. can give you details when I leave about how to get a copy or a reading of that. It deals with one question from the Talmud. What does the Jew do who has a Gentile die in his front yard? Huh? What's that?
He's holding it to the neighbor.
Which kind of Gentile is the neighbor? So the Talmud answers the question and says he gets a burial with the Jew. So then the question is a literal burial or the purification of the body? Purification of the body. So then there's three questions that we always ask. Is there a relationship between the non-Jew and the Jew? Apparently there's some kind of relationship going on. Then the question becomes, okay, which non-Jew? Is it the Akum? Is it the Akum Russia? Is it the Goy? Is it the Nachri Chassid? Is it the Ger? Is it the Ger Toshav? Which one of these Gentiles is it? Or which one is it not? To which the book goes into all the progressions. And then again, it wants to say, aren't there some that we just have no relationship with at all? So there's no such thing as a Gentile. There's probably no such thing as a proselyte or pretty much any of these words from Rabbi Arthur Scroll. The alienated person doesn't exist. The sojourner doesn't exist. So we have to figure out the terminology. Is that agreed? Where do we go for the terminology? How does that work? How does one know? What do you think? Isn't that what you're after with the whole linguistic thing? You said right. You're trying to find the terminology. Where does that come from? Huh? Excuse me? Which Torah? This Torah? The oral Torah. Right? The oral Torah. This is what the oral Torah is. It's terminology 101. And it's what language is the oral Torah written in? Hebrew? Aramaic. So now Onkelos has a home. He has. It's called Aramaic, but it's not exactly Aramaic. It's more like a slangy, unique Aramaic. So therefore, there's a tradition that comes with how to learn the oral Torah. So the answer to your problems are in the oral Torah. Is that affirmative or negative? Does anyone disagree with this? So why are you not then learning the oral Torah to find the linguistic truths that you seek?
Because they're make.
Exactly. So the problem is not knowing how to learn the oral Torah. Correct? But so then you're saying you know that it's the oral Torah in the Aramaic, and you're not learning the Aramaic to learn the oral Torah. Understandably, because it's not exactly Aramaic. You can't just go and learn Aramaic. Because again, the Talmud is not a regular linguistic Aramaic. It's an academic Aramaic. So it's not a spoken language, the Talmud. It's not written, spoken. It's only academic. It's only meant for learning. Meaning, how many of you saw Mel Gibson's movie with The Passion, whatever it's called? I never saw the whole thing. But they're trying to recreate the dialect in the movie with the original Aramaic. Impossible. Impossible. That would be like trying to get a language out of a basketball game and the commentator's language. It's like the husband comes home from work. She says, "Hey, honey, how was it? Slam dunk." I scored 5 shots at work. I got this done. So the time ran out at work, so they blew the whistle on me, and I had to go. I got kicked out of the office. I mean, it's ridiculous. So there's a jargon and a slang element to the Talmud. So the task becomes, how does our Gentile friend get into the oral Torah to understand the terminologies and lingos necessary for putting the story together and navigating the maze through the non-authentic texts, i.e. English and commentaries. How does one do that? How do you plan on doing that? If you're this passionate about the story, and until now we made it here, what does the future look like for you? Huh?
E-teacher.
Teachers.
E-teacher.
Huh?
E-teacher.
The teacher.
Internet.
Huh? A teacher. Okay? But there's a lot of shysters on the E network. So what do you do? Huh? What's that? That doesn't work out too well. Yeah? I can't hear. Okay, and has that worked out for you? No. So why has it not worked out? Louder so I can hear. Right.
Don't the rabbis also differ
What's
from
it?
The rabbis differ.
That's why they say Asele Harav.
That's right. Make for yourself a Rav. So these are the tools of how to make for yourself a Rav. Again, are part of what's missing from the program. Now, do you know why you're stuck? It's not. I know the answers to these questions, but I want to see if you know the answers to these questions. This is what's missing. Now, is there a God? Is God good? Does God have mercy and kindness and compassion? Would then He strand our Gentile friend? Are they stranded? Yes or no? Huh? Okay, but in the book itself, are you stranded? So you're saying you're not stranded. So there is salvation. There is a time when things will get connected. How does that work? How does that path work? What does it look like? How does it happen?
Time.
Huh?
Time.
Time?
I'll hear something here that doesn't make sense.
Yeah.
I'll hear something there, and then suddenly something just goes.
Have you ever gone into a government office where they say, "Don't worry, it'll be just a couple minutes"?
It's like the woman that finds it all ready.
And it doesn't always take a couple minutes. Sometimes they hang up on you. And then you're waiting a long time. Well, we've already waited a long time. And I think we're going to continue waiting a lot longer until people get a move on it. That's why I wrote this book, The World of the Gear. Yeah.
I was just thinking, Jew and Gentile.
Yeah.
Land and water.
Yeah.
Most of the time, if you're not in water, you're on land. Most of the time.
Okay.
Right? The distinction as to whether it's American land or Egyptian land only becomes significant at some point.
Okay.
For most things that you need to do in life, it's enough to know whether you're on land or in water. And I think a lot of the terminology that develops, even across millennia, it serves a purpose. So I think amongst the Jewish community, from a certain philosophical point of view, if someone is not a Jew, that's the only thing that they need to know. Is he a Gentile? How do I deal with
Well, that's what they think. It's very black and white, like you're saying, or land and water, right? It's either if you're a Jew or a Gentile. There's nothing in between, right? That's what people think, and it's just not right. We've already shown that in our introduction with the water, the sea, right? So the distinctions that are not what you're saying, they're not the obvious either here or there. That is the depths of Talmudic academia. So how many Jews, or which Jews, either way you look at it, are interested in Jewish academia? Do you think it's common? Is it rare? Where do you find it? What do you think?
It should be common.
You think so?
Yeah, well, all people know the book.
Yeah?
Make you think it should be common.
Yeah. So is it common?
In Israel.
In Israel it's common?
I think so.
Yeah?
It depends which sphere.
Well, where?
Yeshirim?
Huh? So why, rhetorically, why are you not going after the Jewish scholar that is semi-common based on this discussion to have him show these terminologies and distinctions? Huh?
Exclusion. Most of the time it's exclusion. They don't see the Gentiles as part of learning that.
Right.
So most of the part is exclusion. So I think that what we're seeing is coming up now is that the non-Jews trying to come close and understand more. And this is where the tension starts to build up.
Right. So, but what are the odds of you finding someone that knows? Huh? And that's all we got. The world's in a sorry state. Huh?
I used to go on a Monday night
Yeah.
in Orthodox,
Yeah.
and we go through the Talmud a little bit by little.
Yeah.
And then at some stage, because I don't stay close to the shul and because I cannot prove to the base lead that my grandmother was Jewish,
Right.
then they said, no, I can't come in. So it was sort of, if you're not a convert or you're not Jewish, then you're not welcome.
Right. So that's another point I want to hit on. Why are the non-Jewish people globally so content with that status quo? That's like a burning question I have. Why is everyone that's not Jewish knows? I think it really is everyone knows the Jews have it, but they've given up trying to either make the Jew give it over, encourage the Jew to give it over. Everyone's given up, and now it's a status quo. Is that right or wrong? Huh? And you're okay with that?
Rabbi, I don't think it's really. I think if you look at where the Gentiles coming from predominantly the church, better understanding the understanding is that there is something that we are missing, but we don't know really exactly what we are missing.
That's right. That's why you can't just target it.
Exactly. So that's why you found now the Hebrew roots movement.
Exactly.
And all of these other branches that's coming up, but still they are confused because they don't know exactly how
Where to target the bullseye.
Exactly. And that's the problem I think most of the people are sitting, and what we are currently experiencing now is smaller groups now saying, listen, but we do not belong really into a church environment or a Hebrew roots environment.
Right.
There is something more that we need to move in. But exactly how, where's the target, we don't know.
Exactly.
And that's the thing.
But the thing is, the Jewish religious never advertising itself. Come Gentile, come become a Jewish. Not like the Muslims, not like the Christian. The Jewish keeping the secret for themselves.
Excluded.
Or they make you want to convert. And not everybody wants to convert. This is why I'm asking the question 5 minutes ago. Is God good? Is God compassionate? Are you in the plan? Then why are you so content to not be in the plan?
There's a security guard outside the synagogue. They phone you and tell you.
You're not in the plan.
That's true. If you are sitting here
But that's
today,
isolated. I mean,
they phoned up and said, don't come to the synagogue unless you convert. I said, okay, fine.
Yeah, that's it. Exactly. But what makes you think that what you're looking for is in the synagogue?
This is the way of life.
It's not the way of life.
Torah is the way of life.
Huh?
The Torah is the way of life.
Are they learning Torah in the synagogues?
No, we don't go there.
What is a synagogue?
Base Midrash.
Is it a base midrash?
Supposed to be.
Is it?
Depends on where you go.
Exactly. Most of the time, almost all the time, the base midrash is not the synagogue.
Community center.
Alavai, we would have the community center. We don't have that. Most of Judaism, if we can even start it this way, most of Judaism isn't even in the Torah, period. Reform, conservative, and all of those people. So, the famous algorithm, right? There's 15 million Jews in the world. We've all heard this game played, right? So how many of them are Orthodox? Say what? 5 million to be friendly, even though it's not. Call it 5 million. Is that safe? Yeah? All right, 5 million. Of the 5 million, how many of them are learning the terminology? Let's get it down to 1 million. Is that a safe estimate? Say 1 million. Of those million, how many know the Hebrew and the Aramaic and the Rashi? 250,000? Okay. How many of those 250,000 know it on the prerequisite level needed to understand the distinctions here? Now we're getting a very small number. And from there we can make it even smaller, but I won't bore you.
All we need is 10.
So then we ask the question, where are these Jews found that we may take the 10 men and grab their seat? Right? Zechariah. So where would they be found? If in a perfect world we could get on a magic carpet right now and go find our 10 friends, where would we go? Huh?
Jerusalem.
Jerusalem?
Mount Zion.
Where? Okay, so let's go to Jerusalem then. Where in Jerusalem? Huh?
Should be in the Temple Mount.
Well, it's not. That's the last place you want to go. In terms of learning from people. Huh?
What is it?
Where are we going to go find our 10 Jews that know this stuff? The Jewish academic is the last person on earth you should talk to. They believe the Torah was written by man and without any prophecy. That is the last place. Mea Sharim is not exactly the academic hub of the universe. It's huh? I.e. religiosity is not the code of scholarship. It's the code of religiosity. If you ask me where to go to get the most religious information on the planet, Mea Sharim. So the first distinction, does Torah, wisdom, and knowledge equal religiosity? Yes or no? No. So that makes it radically complicated. Because we don't know how to read levels of observance on the exterior, interior, what sect we're looking for. It makes it ultra, ultra complicated. I.e., let's kind of reframe this discussion. Does any of you have the prerequisite knowledge to navigate Judaism of 2017? Shouldn't that be the first thing that people learn in order to navigate, to find the answers to these questions? Yes or no? That's, I think, crucial of what's missing. Then we can label all the things tonight. We can pin it down to what is missing, the crucial points. What is Rashi? What is the Art Scroll style? What is the English? What are the words? What is the Hebrew? What is the Jew that can teach this? What is the Jew that cannot teach this? What is the Jew that should teach this? What is the Jew that should not teach this? You hear the questions? I think what we're showing, it requires a different thought process. And there's a lack of leadership to facilitate the thinking process. So people are left to their own designs to think their normal thought patterns. While we talked about this at dinner, but trying to develop a different thought process. This is where the Jew and the non-Jew really should work together to refining the story. The Jew needs to give this over to get the story himself, and then the non-Jew has a holy time of alternative thinking process to learn how to put the story together. Does that make sense? That's what you're trying to do, and that's what the world needs to get to doing. So there are people out there that are doing it. It's just it's very rare right now. It's in a lion's den kind of mentality of the internet. The internet is the foreground of this playground that we're talking about, and there's a lot of shysters out there. And a lot of confusion. In reality, like you said, the security guards are outside the shul. And the other institutions, we don't know even what to look for. And they don't know that you exist to look for you. Huh?
How do we find things?
Who? Me.
How do we find those institutions or those people that can teach us?
Well, again, that's where Sid, the senior here, and I spoke about. Now we're caught up to real time. This is exactly your question is called real-time reality. Now I think we went forward and backward and all around. That is the only question. How do we find it? And that was always the only question. And then 120 years, 80 years goes by, and we never found the answer to that question. And then the next generation inherited the question, and then they dealt with it. That's the only question that we're trying to solve.
Do you have an answer for
I do. I do. I want to take an intermission though. I want to use the restroom and allow you guys to maybe talk amongst yourselves. I need to use the bathroom, but so go ahead and we can stop this. So let's take a break. I'm gonna go to drink water and I'll come back.
Yeah.
And then we'll think about that. And then let me start off just by saying one story.
Hi guys, story.
So I'll give one more little push here, then we'll do some Q&A with some teaching of terminology and text. So I took an Uber on Monday of last week at about 1 in the morning, I was 15 minutes out of Cape Town, and I had to get to Cape Town. So the cab driver or Uber driver picks me up at about 1 in the morning, and he says, "So you're Jewish?" I said, "Yes, I mean, obviously." And we got to talking, a little bit of politics, a little bit of religion, a little bit of things. And he's telling me about how much he loves the Bible, and he goes to church and all these things. And he says the Bible says that he who blesses my people shall be blessed. And he says, "So who's paying for the Uber?" So I said, "Good question. Where's this one going?" You know. I said, "I think the guy who sent me." He says, "Well, I make a practice not to charge Jews for an Uber." He said, "The Bible says those who bless my people shall be blessed, and you're a Jew, and I'm not going to make you pay for the Uber because I want to get blessed." So in the end, that's what happened. And I tell this story in Cape Town, and people were shocked. I guess that's not a common thing to give up, a wage in South Africa. It's just the way it runs here. And a Jewish friend of mine, we were on Sea Point on the shoreline, talking about the website that we're going to build, and it was Erev Shabbos, so we didn't go to shul yet. We're on our way to shul, and he was wearing a yarmulke, but generally he doesn't wear a yarmulke. Not a religious guy. So a guy was walking along, and he's kind of going fast, and he says, "My brother, I'm Jewish in my heart too." And so Gary says, "I'm with you, my brother." And he goes, and he looks at me and he says, "I've never had that happen in my life. I should probably start wearing my yarmulke more often." And the fact is, it's everywhere. This thing that you're describing is everywhere. And this is what the Jews don't know. They just don't know. They don't know that 7 billion people are trying to get this story straight. And the truth be told, Jews don't know the story. They're not interested in the story. And the chances are the Jew that you're looking for, he might not be interested in helping you, but I wouldn't take that to heart. And the Jew that you're talking about, they don't have the answer. Okay? They don't. And it goes like this. When you need something and that you go looking for it, what are the chances the first person you meet is just the wrong person? How many times do you have that happen? Yeah, and you end up buying the wrong thing 3 times, and then you get tired of being ripped off, and then you look it up and you find out exactly where you got to go to get it, right? We all hate that experience. Right now, that's really all that's going on. The people selling the story are not the ones that you want to buy the story from. The ones that have the story, you haven't realized yet who that person is, or those people. That's all that it's all that's going on. I call it you're buying McDonald's, but you're looking for the real food, and eventually, both sides will find each other. And they exist. There are people that know it. But there's a lot of people that don't. So the shul, as you're describing, won't let you in. 2 things I'll say about that. Number 1 is it's probably the wrong match anyways. Number 2, when that thing, and it's a thing, just a thing, is refined, that is Mashiach and redemption. Sydney read it at dinner, something I wrote for the rabbis, that the Lubavitcher Rebbe talks about the relationship of teaching Torah to the non-Jew. That is such a powerful union that the Torah of the Mashiach comes out of that. So therefore, as long as there's not that, then you have the problem that we've had for thousands of years. So when we figure out how to refine that, you're going to find what the Rambam says, the world will be filled with the knowledge of God. And the world, or the entire world, what the Rambam means, what the Lubavitcher Rebbe says absolutely clearly, is that includes Jew and non-Jew. So then, that relationship is what needs to be refined. Is that agreed? And that's what my mission is. There are other people that have had it before me, they'll have it after me, and they have it alongside me. So, for example, this book is that relationship. That's all this book's about. Now, why can't you find it? Any takers? I know we said we're going to do Q&A, but I want to talk a little more. Anybody know why? What's the content of this book? If I say it's the answer, why don't you have the answer?
It's never been translated until now.
That's also true. That's part of it. That's a big part of it. Huh?
What he said?
It hasn't been translated. And that's true.
But it's probably because the deliberate attempt,
What's that?
there could be a deliberate attempt
Yeah.
in some quotas
Yeah.
to hold it back.
That's also true.
We don't know what the question is.
It's also true.
Other rabbis don't like to actually reference other book of other rabbis.
They don't what?
Recommend.
Yes, recommend.
Yeah. Also true.
Big.
These are all true. My 2 cents is you are not thinking along the lines of this book. And neither is the Jew in the shul. No one is.
How many people know what's in them?
What's that?
How many people know what's in them?
Very few. That's also part of this. So you hear the problem. And this is good. Now we can start to refine the issue. Until you know what the issue is, you don't know how to refine it. So now I'm focusing on the refinement.
I think this is part of how deep you're willing to dig.
Remember what we said about the water?
Yeah, I think this is
And the
part of-
sea?
we're just
And the
taking
organisms?
water instead of taking it out.
Exactly.
See what you need.
You got to get into the ocean of this thing. That's how we started tonight. So look, let me give you an example of how far you are from the truth. When I say you, I'm talking you and people like you and the world that you'll find. Okay? This book, think about what I said, what it is. I'm being general and vague on purpose. Think about what you would say and how you would approach it. How many of you are willing, or even just happening to, in your mind, say, hey, what happens when a non-Jew dies in the yard of a Jew? How many of you woke up this morning and thought that? Anyone? You didn't think that?
Yeah. Security goes out the
Yeah.
synagogue. Yeah.
The other way around.
And then how many of you thought about the answer to that question? And where did you look up the answer to that question?
About that or
That is the last place you want to find that question. Will you find that question and answer on Chabad.org?
that's the rabbi.
You will.
Huh? No, you will not find that on
Find
Chabad.
other stuff.
Yeah, but you will not find that. And that is the thinking of how to find this thing.
And I went to a bookstore.
Yeah.
Just say a bookstore.
Yeah.
And I started to buy the 72 books.
Yeah.
And it was said, no, you're not allowed to because, first of all, you're a woman.
Mhm.
Second of all, you cannot learn that without a rabbi
Right.
teaching you how to learn that.
Right.
And my door was shut.
Yeah.
just there and then I was touched totally flabbergasted, and I just left it. Okay, that's no place for me. So yes, my mind, until you've asked this question tonight, again, it's been closed. And for me, so this is so important for me. I know it's for everybody important, but what you're saying is so deep and so precious. And I really, really just want to say thank you for bringing it, because I know you're going to give us the answer.
So I'll just say the answer, then we'll work from there. So there's something called a non-Jew. Yeah? Then there's something called a religious non-Jew. Christian, Muslim, whatever you want. Then there's something called leaving religion. Yeah? Then there's something called finding a new religion. Now, let's say or pretend that's an infinite pit right there already. Right? You leave one church to find a new church as the answer, then you're stuck in a denominational world. And then somewhere in that is this Jewish story that's the underlying premise of the whole thing, is it not? Now let's say there's something called finding the truth and not finding the truth. We've already established you're not going to find the truth in that way. It's too far beyond, too abstract. So we kind of got to go. In bowling, you see, you take what the lane gives you. Right? You never find what you need right away, even though we believe we're going to. I know, like when I dated, when I was a yeshiva guy, I thought, the first woman I date, I'm going to marry her, and that's going to be the end of it. Well, that ended up being a 7-year search. So there went that theory. So since the truth is not possible and not an option, you have to get to that point where it's just not going to happen. Then there's something called Noahide. Now that's not the truth, and that's why it's hard, because you're being asked to go for more non-truth for the sake of coming to the truth. But you didn't ask me my opinion. You asked me how it's done. So I'm telling you. So you have to make a decision if you want the truth or how it's done. One is fiction, one is reality. No one gets anywhere by going the way it's done. Isn't that right? If you want to make Aliyah to Israel, the truth is, I'm a human being, I deserve rights, and I should... Really? Let me know how that works out for you. But if you want to know how to get it done, you call Moshe at the Misrat Abnim office, and you deal with old Moshe over there, and you do what you need to do. So now, if we're not going for the truth, we're going Noahide. 7 laws of Noah. Yeah? That should be a death sentence. And usually it is. And it's a horrible death sentence. But beyond that, remember, let's call Noahide that surface water level. And they will nurture that shallow level until the day you die. But that's the decision you have to make for giving in to a falsehood or remaining going in circles looking for truth. So one you believe should work, but it's not working out for you. The other one obviously won't work, but I'm asking you to go there. Because what happens is, when you go deeper into Noahide, there's something called Ger Toshav. And that's the Ger of the Torah, and that is where the answer to the story starts and finishes. So it's almost like the door has overgrowth over it. But the path is called Ger. Ger Toshav is the Talmudic term. The Ger is the biblical term. So when we had Sid Sr. the sojourner, the proselyte, the alien, these are all terms for ger, the biblical non-Jew. Now, a lot of Jews have no idea what ger toshav is. And I say most, I mean, we're talking really most. So any Jew that doesn't know, again, I'm not asking you to go away from the truth. Go with kind of the uncomfortable non-truth. Most Jews, like almost all, have no idea what ger toshav is. So you can either try to figure it out yourself by going for the truth, or, how many of you seen The Matrix? So Morpheus tells Neo to get out of the building through the scaffolding. What does Neo do? He didn't even try. He said it was too hard, and he went into Agent Smith's hands. I'm Morpheus. You're Neo. And I'm telling you, if you want out of the building, you got to go on the scaffolding. So there is a way out. But it's very, 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 very hard. Yeah.
Now, let's make it a little bit more confusing.
Yeah.
Hashem said to son of Israel, the Bnei Israel, remember that you was gerim in Egypt. What is the gerim? What he's talking about? If he's talking about ger as outside, yes, alien. But he said, the son of Israel, you was gerim in Egypt. Remember that. Meaning, look after the ger.
Remember what we said at the beginning of the night, that modern Hebrew is a klippah? That modern Hebrew will lead you astray? That was a good example. Yifap? You understood the Hebrew from modern Hebrew.
Yes.
That's why you're confused.
Okay, what is the gerim? The son of Israel, what is the gerim?
So number one, you didn't quote the verse correctly. Number two, there's more than one usage of ger in that verse. Number three, the ger in that verse, ger proper, is more than one definition of ger at one time. Number five, number 4 or 5, it also said the term nefesh hager, which that's not a translatable term. It's a technical Talmudic term. So already, what have we learned? You got to dig deeper to get that answer. It's the same problem every time. You're no different than everybody else. But modern Hebrew gives and knowledge of like art school Hebrew, gives the impression that anyone can just look at it, analyze it, and say, what does it mean? Or it requires study each time. That's what ger toshav represents. That's why people don't know it. The answer is, and if you can look it up, look up the verse. I don't know if you can do it while I'm talking. Look up the remember in Egypt, and let me know, and I'll tell you what I find during this talk. Look it up, and then we'll look it up. Huh?
Just after Genesis.
All right, so tell me when you find it. So now, ger toshav is the biblical path given by God in the Torah for the non-Jew to serve God from and to work on the story in cooperation with a Jew who knows this thing in a kosher way. Anything outside of that, the relationship cannot and will not happen. Now do you see why I had to go that weird route? It's going to lead in the worst religion possible until you hit that nugget of ger and how to become ger. It's actually very simple how to become ger. You just put your right hand up, so to speak, and after that you talk to God and say, God, I state your name, accept 7 laws of Noah and the rejection of Shituf. Now, what is Shituf? Shituf is any religious system or doctrine. When that is made between you and God, and you do it from knowing the 7 laws, and the rejection of Shituf has to be real, obviously, so you can't just do it if you don't know what it is. But it is the Torah formula. So when the goal should be to get to that point. Actively know what you're accepting on yourself and what you're rejecting. Then you have the confidence in your soul to go to the right Jew and say, I am a Ger Toshav. Can you teach me the appropriate Torah? Kacha, kacha, kacha. That Jew would oblige, and they're not found in a synagogue. They're found in a study hall. Big, 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 big difference. You don't go to McDonald's for a hamburger. You go to a restaurant for a hamburger. But everyone goes to McDonald's. You see the difference? And then you get on Facebook, they're saying, I had the best gourmet burger from McDonald's. No, you didn't. You had a Big Mac. Do not call that gourmet. It is not gourmet. So when that mentality shifts, then you will find scholars that will find it to be a mitzvah to help you put the story together. Did you find it?
Devarim 10:19.
$10.19?
Yeah.
Yeah, that's one of them. That's not the best verse. There's a better one. Huh? All right,
Shemot 23:9.
Yeah, that's the one.
That's the one.
Again, was it 23?
9.
23:9. That verse that is also a good one, but I want to focus on this one. We'll do that one next. 23:9?
Yeah.
Yeah, that's the one.
See, Rabbi Google.
Yeah. Okay. 23:9. Do not oppress a stranger. Why did you not? Achi. Lama tala deber kacha. Why did you not say that it says to do not oppress a stranger? Do you see the problem? Ken or no? Okay. Boya gdola. Big problem. Boya gdola. Yes, it's a big problem. It not say what it says. Savlanut. Do not oppress a stranger. And you, the guy was sitting there. Where's he at? This guy here. This is you. Right? You would say that you would go look up that phrase in other places. Right? In English. It says, do not oppress a stranger. By what you said earlier, you would take that phrase and try to find where that phrase exists everywhere else. Right?
Yeah.
Right.
What is it, Shemot?
23:9. You know the feelings of a stranger,
Exodus.
for you were strangers in the land of Egypt. Got it? In Hebrew. Lo tilchatz va'atem yadatem es nefesh hager ki gerim hayitem be'eretz Mitzrayim. So I'm going to let you know that this thing called Nefesh Hager, literally, practically every Jew on the planet will try to make sense out of those two words. Nefesh Hager. What do we have in the English here for that? You know the feelings of a stranger. Actually, זה אותו דבר בכלל? בכלל לא, לא?
There's the other one though.
זה הפוך לגמרי. נכון?
I think he was quoting another one.
No, he was quoting this one.
No, 22:20 he says the use of the gear.
Also here, this gear. 22:20.
22:20.
Shemot.
Yeah.
22:20.
Yeah.
You shall not taunt or oppress a stranger.
You will gear him.
Begerlo sone velo tilchatzenu. Ki gerim haytem be'eretz Mitzrayim. You were gerim in the land of Egypt. All right, you want to focus on that one? We can focus on that one. What does it mean, actually? Ger lo soneh. Ma ze bichlal?
I don't know.
לא יודע. כל מישהו בארץ ישראל, אתה יודע איך את המקום שאני מבקש אותו? לא יודע. תשאל מישהו אחר.
לך ישר.
So now, it says, Ger, do not taunt him, and do not oppress him, because y'all were Gerim in the land of Egypt. When you look at Rashi, again, this is, what does it mean, Ger lo soneh? Ger, do not taunt him. That sounds like a nice ethical, we don't taunt the Ger here. I wanted to make fun of one once, but I remembered, don't taunt him. Do you really think that when you go to Israel, they're going to say, that's a Ger over there, give him a good taunt? So, lo soneh, do not taunt. This is again, what is it? A technical Talmudic term. Terminology. Doesn't mean what it looks like it means. Let's read Rashi. That is verse 20. Find Rashi. V'ger lo soneh. Onas devarim. Now you've lost, almost again, every Jew on the planet. What is onat dvarim? You know, onat dvarim.
Lost.
This now you ask why the Jews are not here helping you. This is why. It says in the Torah 46 times to not taunt the ger. It's practically spoken of more than Moses himself. And yet no one knows what it means to not taunt the ger. And is taunt different than oppression? Because it says do not taunt or oppress. Well, is that the same thing? You see the questions now. Now do you know why the story is so hard? You're not the problem. Lack of authentic, deep scholarship in the deepest original language is the problem. You follow what I'm saying? So let me tell you what Onat Dvarim is. Onat Dvarim, you could loosely translate that as ripping somebody off. So you don't have the right to rip off the tourist in Cape Town. Because you were a tourist in Egypt. Now, that's of financial ripping somebody off. The Talmud wants to know and asks, can you rip somebody off with words? Then you ask, what does that mean, pray tell? Ripping off monetarily, I can understand. But onat dvarim. Do not read rip off in things. Dvarim means words. So already it's in code. Onat dvarim. People would say don't rip them off with stuff. But it means don't rip them off with words.
Like line.
Huh?
Like line.
Exactly. Now, don't taunt the ger is a little different in all of our minds, isn't it? Then the Talmud, in the Yerushalmi Talmud, Ata lomed Talmud Yerushalmi or Talmud Bavli? Bavli. Ma ze Talmud Yerushalmi? Lo yodea. Lo yodea. I said, which Talmud do you learn? Jerusalem or Babylonian? Babylonian. I said, you don't learn, what is the Jerusalem Talmud? I don't know. There's two Talmuds, Babylonian and Jerusalemonian.
So that one is Babylon, the other one is Mo.
Again, how many times have I said this? Okay, I'll say it together. Most people don't or learn the Jerusalem Talmud. Why? Kacha. No reason. They just don't. So if we were to get a little frisky and learn the Jerusalem Talmud on this, you would see the Ger Toshav is exactly like a Jew in 3 things. I forget 2 of them, so don't ask me. But one of them is don't taunt the Ger. So now, in the Babylonian Talmud, I am a Ger. Did you know why I'm a Ger? A Baal Tshuva is a Ger. You know Baal Tshuva?
Yeah.
Therefore, I'm a Ger because the Baal Tshuva is a Ger. Why then is a Baal Tshuva a Ger? Just like the Ger, who is obviously not a convert, because we're told, do not remind the convert of his past. So the convert, did he yesterday eat non-kosher food? Yesterday? He was a Jew yesterday. Unless he converted today, that would be very good timing. Are you a convert? Well, I'm glad you asked. I just got out of the mikveh. How did you know? What a coincidence. I am, in fact, a Jew today. So, you say to the Ger, you come to learn Torah from me, and yesterday you were eating treif, non-kosher food. Why would I teach you Torah? The Baal Tshuva also. Yesterday you were eating treif, and today all of a sudden you're kosher? So the convert, you would never say that. Because either he was Jewish yesterday, and by definition he's religious, or if he did not convert, but today, do you really think he was eating McDonald's with a cheeseburger yesterday, the day before he dunked in the mikveh? Obviously not. So it's a non-Jewish convert ger. You understand? There, huh? You technically could say that. Toshav, ha toshav is the same letter as tshuva. There's plenty of reason to say that. So you see, the Talmud calls the Baal Tshuva a ger. Now, on a deeper level, how do I know the ger Toshav was eating treif, non-kosher food yesterday? It's kind of presumptuous, don't you think? How do I know that? Remember the Torah is like water? Water's like the sea. Sea's got organisms in it. And we made a declaration that we're going to dig into the sea. Okay? Now, turn to page in your learning books to Deuteronomy chapter 14, verse 21. It is indeed. Chapter 14, verse 21 in Dvarim. You shall not eat any carcass to the stranger who is in your cities. There's our word. Hello. Shalom. Hello. There's our word. See? It comes up all the time, doesn't it? Yes, it does. Who is in your cities, shall you give it, that he may eat it, or sell it to a Gentile? For you are a holy people to Hashem your God. You shall not cook a kid in its mother's milk. This is the first time I ever fully understood that.
It's our pleasure.
I'll explain what I just hopped in a second. Now, what does the Hebrew say? You will not eat any, Sidney Jr.? Nevela. Non-kosher meat. To the ger that is in your gates you shall give it to, and he shall eat it, or sell it to the Nachri, because you are a holy nation of Hashem your God. Do not cook. This is where I got it wrong. I was always saying, do not cook a kid in its mother's milk. Rabbi Scroll got it actually right. You shall not cook a kid in its mother's milk. Because since the verse is telling, hey, you Gerim out there can't eat non-kosher. You, the Jew, are not Mr. Baal Tshuva even. You're not that kind of ger. You are still holy and do not eat non-kosher things. I just now got that extra, because usually it's taught that the beginning of the verse with the nevela is not the same as the end with cooking the kid. Now I see it's actually absolute. See, you'll see in the art scroll they put a semicolon. That's wrong. That semicolon is absolutely wrong. What it's saying is, you Baal Tshuva are going to think you're not Jewish. Don't be confused. The Ger Toshav eats non-kosher meat. That is part of the definition of Ger Toshav. You, the Jewish people, even though you may be Ger Toshav vis-a-vis reality, you ate non-kosher yesterday. In spiritual reality, you're not Ger Toshav literally. So the definition of Ger Toshav is someone who the Jew gives non-kosher meat to, which is opposite of a Nachri, a non-seven law abiding citizen who the Jew is forbidden by the Torah to give anything to. Therefore, we must sell him the meat. This mitzvah is one of the mitzvahs of the Torah, one of the biggest mitzvahs of the Torah. It is the foundation of all charitable relations between Jew and Gentile, i.e. seven law Gentile. Read Rashi. To the ger that's in your gate, ger toshav, that he accepts on himself not to serve idols and he eats nevela. Isn't that what we said a little bit ago? Didn't I say that there's a Torah prescription of how to have the relationship? And we said that the problem is that we're not thinking the proper thoughts of Torah of how to find the answer. Did any of you go up to your rabbi and ask him for the non-kosher carcass to be laid in front of your, they asked for the carcass. Did you guys ask that? No. Why not? But I'm saying that's the Torah. Now, we're not suggesting that you go receive carcasses. Hang on one second. What I'm saying is, when the educated rabbi is to receive somebody to help, this is the Torah reference where it is referenced. Now, it's very easy to upgrade the thinking of this mitzvah. We can either extend the carcass, charitable relations, to the realm of the spiritual relationship in helping. That's probably easy to understand. Or, by understanding that there's a precedent, then we make more seawater, more organisms, i.e. find more of the appropriate text that will define the relationship to establish the bridge between the Jewish educator and the potential ger, in bracket, toshav. Okay. Yes?
When you say ger toshav, he's not saying in the Hebrew ger toshav. He said, לא תפעילו כל נבלה לגר אשר בשעריך, meaning the gar in the gate. So gar toshav is not one that live with us, not in the gate. In the gate, most of the time there was the stranger in the gate, somebody that's not involved in the community. That's
Okay.
how I see it. Maybe I'm wrong, because gar toshav, what is toshav? Somebody that stay with us.
לא נכון. מה זה לא נכון?
Not right.
באמת?
No, you say to me now, not right.
באמת?
No?
לא נכון.
Not right.
Not right. Not right.
אז יש חידוש.
Oh, okay.
נכון?
Can you...
Yes. You, again, can I pick on you a little bit?
Shame.
Every time there is a guest speaker, they invite
I did that a little bit on purpose. As I said, I heard the question. Now I know the answer. And I said back, what did I say? Lo nachon. And what happened? The training of many years of Israeli thinking went right back into not right. And we spent 5 minutes on this at the beginning of the night. That lo nachon does not mean wrong. And so he is not wrong. What is he? Not ripe. So, you looked at it as ger in your gates and you made a definition. Number one, I'm guessing based on modern Hebrew, Ivrit. אבל אתה חושב שזה עברית, נכון? זה עברית או לשון הקודש? זה עברית או לשון הקודש? עברית זה מתחיל בבן יהודה לפני 100 שנים.
2000 שנה.
זה יותר מ-2000 שנה, זה הישן. בן יהודה זה משהו 100 שנים.
נכון.
והוא שבמשרד שלו, והוא תקשיב, מה אני חושב, זה כתוב, ואני אומר משהו אחר, נכון? כן. What I said was, 100 years ago, you probably recognize the name Ben Yehuda, sat in his office with his spectacles, and he made up a new language called Ivrit, translated loosely as Hebrew. This is not Ivrit. Moses was a little older than Ben Yehuda. And I will show you, since about our whole linguistic approach tonight, that Ben Yehuda, Kitzat Shegitz, Kitzat, right? A little bit off. How many of you know what glasses are? Anybody heard this invention called glasses?
Which ones?
Glasses? איך אומר glasses בעברית? כן, מה זה?
משקפיים.
משקפיים. מה זה משקפיים?
Something that משתקף.
משתקף.
נראה. Something that you...
כן. למה הוא לא להגיד על זה חוזניים או רועיים? ככה? כמה מילים לראות? רועיים, חוזיים. So I say, why did Ben Yehuda call them mishkafayim, which is a type of looking, and not choznaim, another kind of word of looking, or roaim, another word for looking? In fact, there are about 6 words that he could have chosen. Why did he choose this word mishkef, shakef, mishkafayim, from the root of the word, you know?
Like I said, shakef.
But there's many words to look.
Yes.
So why did he choose that one? The answer is, in Greek, the word for glasses sounds like mishkafayim. So he said, let's use the Greek, and therefore to be easy in the etymology, now we have invented mishkafayim. So every Israeli that thinks he is looking through something is actually speaking Greek. Ken.
There is a lot of words that came from the Latin, like television.
Exactly. So modern Hebrew, they have an organization in Israel where they draw from Latin, English, Italian, Yiddish, and our Arabic friends love us for this, Arabic. I'm sure they love that. A bunch of Israelis speaking Arabic with Hebrew characters. And they wonder why there's a problem. God forbid they would have chosen more directly to Holy Tongue. The reason why they didn't is because there's a shortage of words in the Holy Tongue. So, sometimes Ben Yehuda got it right, sometimes he got it wrong, and I will demonstrate another example. אתה לקבל פרס אם אתה תקשיב אותי עכשיו. אתה רוצה לקבל פרס? תמיד. בפרקי אבות, מה זה כתוב? כאילו להיות עבד השם, מישהו שלא לקבל פרס. משהו לשם שמיים. לא בחינם, לא, דווקא כאילו תלוי על פרס. I asked him if he listens to me, he'll get a prize. Would you like a prize?
If it's for free.
So, in modern Hebrew, the word pras, not to be confused with Peres, Shimon Peres, or Iran, same word. So pras pras in rabbinic Hebrew is different than modern Hebrew. The difference is when the rabbi says, I want to serve God, not like those to receive this thing called pras, whatever pras is. That is not the same as my 8-year-old son who goes to a Purim carnival and throws a ping pong in a bowl of a fish in order to receive a pras. A prize. If we say it's the same word for the Purim carnival, there's your Purim reference, then the rabbi is saying, I want to be like the servants of God, not receive a prize. That was a joke. Do you get the joke? By keeping it in modern Hebrew, the rabbi is saying, I don't want a prize. Do you really think he's talking about the Purim carnival? Rabbi Akiva is saying, I don't want to be like Rabbi Katz's 8-year-old son Reuven who wants a prize. The point is, the word pras doesn't mean prize. It doesn't mean anything in English. If I say that I'm serving God for the sake of heaven and not to receive pras, can you see how that's not a prize? It's something much deeper. I don't even think we can articulate what it is, correct? If I say I want to serve God for the sake of heaven, not to receive or accept a pras, whatever it is, it's not a prize. Modern Hebrew, every Israeli is going around reading Ethics of the Fathers not to receive a prize. If that's not shocking, I don't know what is. Every word is like this. So, with modern Hebrew, at best, you're guessing to what it means. At best. And most of the times, it's a half-baked guess. Because modern Hebrew is not what's written on this column here. Levanta? Barur?
So you say this is modern Hebrew?
Absolutely. This is Lashon HaKodesh, the holy tongue. It has zero relevance in Hebrew. So toshav means to dwell in modern Hebrew. In biblical Hebrew, it 0% means to dwell. Nowhere does it say dwell here. Ger asher b'sharecha. Ger in your gate. So the question becomes, what is the gate? And in ger toshav, what does it mean, ger toshav? This is when people ask me, Rabbi Katz, what is a ger toshav? You cannot answer that question, or you fundamentally become Ben Yehuda, making up modern Hebrew terms. Read Rashi. We read Rashi. Ger toshav. Where did Rashi get the word ger toshav from?
Talmud.
Huh?
Talmud.
Okay.
From Ger Tzedek and Ger Toshav.
Yeah.
Oh, but he got it from Abraham, was called Toshav, right?
That's also. When you said the whole ger in your gate versus ger toshav, where were you thinking ger toshav came from?
No, I hear you say all the time ger toshav.
Right.
I didn't see it like in toshav.
Sure.
Yeah.
Exactly.
So what I presume that toshav dwelling
Right.
is not
Exactly.
according to the gate.
And that's what everybody thinks. And toshav is a definitionless word. For example, Rambam asks your question. What does toshav mean? You should probably have, if you want to play around, while I'm doing this, on Chabad.org, they have the Rambam. Look up in Isuri Bia, chapter 14, halacha 7. Let me know when you found that.
Next week.
So Rambam says, I'll quote it from memory then. Ezuhu ger toshav. Who is a ger toshav? Someone who has accepted the 7 laws, rejected of idolatry, and is one of the pious of the nations. Then he says, and why is he called toshav? And you would say, because he lives somewhere near us, blah, blah, blah. You're almost there. Because he is allowed to live in Israel. It is different than he lives in Israel. Meaning the kicker is permitted. not what he does, living. So toshav ze heksher, כאילו. זה משהו heksher. שהוא קונה דרגה kashrut alav. He has a certificate of authenticity that we would even allow him to dwell with us in Israel. So you see, it's all code. So then we see, did the Rambam write this himself? No. He quoted the Talmud when he said, Ezehu ger toshav, who is a ger toshav? Those are not his words. That is a direct copy and paste from the tractate of Avodah Zorah 64b. Then we see, look at Rashi here. Voila. What does Rashi say? Ger toshav, da-da-da-da-da, da-da-da-da-da, and what's his source? Avodah Zorah 64b. So Rashi and Rambam were in the same spot on the ger in your gate reference. And they were talking ger toshav, because the Talmudic definition of ger toshav is the ger in your gates. You see the system? I'm not asking if you mastered it, but you can see the system. And there is a perfect matrix system at play, and its linguistic relevance is 0%. If you approach the Holy Tongue on a purely linguistic level, you will meet Mr. Ben Yehuda every single time. And you better have some good mishkafayim on you. Glasses. The words and the terminologies that you're seeking are not definable. They're not words to look up. You'll never find the right dictionary because they're not in a dictionary. You will never find them online because they're not translated online. It's scholarship. Now, the good news, and that's a half-loaded term, is that the non-Jew exists within a massive lexicon of Torah terms that he is entitled to in order to understand himself. Nachri, ger toshav, ger in your gates, you might know it as the aliens and the strangers and the proselytes. Isn't that the big terms that you're looking for? Yes or no? And those are the terms that you are entitled to. And there are little fraternities in Judaism that have devoted themselves to that study. My advice to you is to stay away from everybody else and only go to those academies and rabbis. Everything else is a religious waste of time. It's the best advice I can give. So it's knowing what you're looking for that will get you to where you got to be. I may have written, I think, the most accessible books, but I'm not the only rabbi in the field. But it takes, we have to build a large and better infrastructure, not in the rabbinic institutions, and not making more interested Gentiles, because both exist, and we've already proven that. What we said starting this second session is we need to refine that mucky area where this information is muddied waters. From bad Hebrew to bad religion to bad people. And immersed in that are great souls. And they're stuck. And we do have the answer to unstuck it. And it's the thing that we're talking about tonight. So now we can open up for questions. Yeah?
It's 9.
Huh?
It's 9.
All right. How you doing?
Question.
Yeah. Ken.
Ruth Amoavia.
Ger, lo convert. She lo converted.
כן. אז איזה קטגוריה אתה...
גר תושב.
גר תושב.
כן, למה?
לא.
בעלה גוי יהודי.
בעלה יהודי.
כן.
אוקיי.
ובזמן שהוא ניסוי איתה, היא גויה גמורה. איך זה מותר? בתורה מותר שישראל אמיתי לניסוי למישהו שלא עובד עבודה זרה. What I said was, answering his question, Ruth was not a convert. Ruth was a ger toshav. The surprise, and I'll kind of shift the discussion a little bit, is there such a thing as a non-Jew? You think so? That's how you think. Remember what we said? Think a little different? How does the Torah think about that question?
Everybody's supposed to be a Jew.
Okay?
Did you bring it from Abraham?
What is a Jew? What is the Hebrew word that you're trying to say when you say the English word Jew? Maza Yodi.
על יהודה.
From Yehuda? אתה חושב ככה? אתה נכון?
לא יודע.
עכשיו אתה לא יודע, משהו אתה לא רוצה שאני אגיד לך, זה לא נכון.
אני רוצה שתגיד לי.
זה לא נכון?
אני חושב שזה נכון.
זה לא נכון.
זה לא נכון.
לא נכון. מה זה לא נכון?
היהודים לא...
לא, מה זה מילה לא נכון? Not right. כן, נכון. Here's our Purim reference once again. In the tractate of the Talmud, the tractate Megillah, very Purim-esque. I forget which page, if it's 13 or 14. It says, in Purim we talk about the Yehudim, in the Hebrew Yehudim. I don't know how you call that in English. In the art scroll, if you want to look it up, I don't know what it is. Probably the Jews, but it's wrong.
Yes.
Yeah,
For the
Jews.
they were
Right.
writing letters.
Right. So the Talmud says, again, what am I going to go with this? We think like people, and we need to think like the Torah. And that's always the problem, right? I thought it meant Judah. We need to get the Torah thinking on it, right? The Talmud says the Yehudim of the Megillah is a term, there's that word term, used for people who have rejected idolatry. So the Yehudim of the Megillah is the non-idolatrous peoples. The Jewish people became called Jewish people only at the time of the Megillah. Before that, they were called the children of Israel. Why did they call themselves Yehudim? Number one, there was a tribe of Yehuda, and that was mainly what was left, but they sanctified themselves as the remnant of Israel, as the non-idolatrous remnant. So they coined the term upon themselves as non-idolaters, having zero to do with the fact of Judah. It had nothing to do with it. Again, Mishkafayim is based on Greek, not the word to see.
Yeah, Mordechai is called
Yehudi.
Yehudi, even though he calls him a Benjamin.
And that's what Tosfos asks. Why would Mordechai be called a Yehudi if he was a Benjaminite? And the answer is it had nothing to do with Judah. So we got to that. I forget why, but we'll go back to my question. So Ruth and all these things. What do you call a non? What is a non-Jew? And you said all should be Jews. Another way of saying that, we should all be non-idolaters. Is that what you really meant?
Yes.
Of course it is. So are you non-Jews or non-idolaters? Okay. The Torah wants everyone to be Yehudim, not Jews. Big difference. Correct? So when we say that, the Torah wants Yehudim. But in more layman English, to not make confusion, the Torah says there is either idolatrous or non-idolatrous. Ruth was a non-idolater. A Jew by the Torah technically can marry a non-idolater. That's why Machlin,
Sorry, again? Can you repeat?
a Jew, the prohibition in the Torah is for a Jew, Bnei Yisrael, to not marry an idolater. That's the prohibition.
So you can marry non-Jew if she's not idolatry?
The Torah level allows that. The rabbinics then stipulate the conditions. It was one of the. This is one of the loopholes in the Torah. It's not done today, and it's not meant to be done again. For example, a Noah. This is pretty gross. Bear with me. A Noahide man can enter relationships that can be deemed kind of not so beseder. But they took upon themselves to never do it again. So in the Torah, we find things that were once done and will probably never be done again. Many wives, one of the things is not done. In kosher, there's things that you could eat but are not done. So the rabbinics in Judaism they call this deraisa on the Torah level. Intermarriage is one of those things that what it really produced was King David, because with Ruth and Boaz, that type of relationship, it produced a King David. This is why King David says he's a ger, right? It's kind of beyond comprehension. The tribe of Judah did it in order to get to King David because they had the blessing from Judah or from Jacob, and it was never good to do. It never produced anything good. David suffered for it. No tribes did it. It'll never be done again. So what we have is a convert can marry a Jew. Because the convert comes with what's called badika, checking, to make sure there's no idolatry there. Today there's no badika. There's no checking. And the wisdom that comes with rejecting idolatry on that level. For example, to know the level that Ruth was on, someone asked me if they could say God's name. Now they think it's a matter of kosher, not kosher, or like law or not law. To say God's name effectively requires the wisdom and knowledge of the name. So if you don't know what you're saying, all you're doing is saying. And by definition, that can't be good. Agreed? So she says, well, King David said it. Okay. Are you like King David? She says, yes. Okay. Good luck to you. Let me know how that goes. King David spent his whole life as the progenitor of the Messiah, and you're like him. Now, usually I don't do ad hominem attacks. That's one case I think an ad hominem is apropos. Huh?
Apropos. I've got a question about that though.
One second.
I agree with you.
So, Ruth knew how to elevate her soul. Convert at that time, it looks like it didn't even exist. Because the people that wanted to elevate knew how to elevate. And Boaz saw the elevation. Quite clearly, that wisdom is not prominent and prevalent today. Not on the Jewish side or the non-Jewish side. The consequence of getting that wrong is what's called the wayward child. Remember the wayward child? Sodom and Gomorrah. Like you kill that kid. It's not the kind of thing you want to play with and get wrong. So people don't go there. What the convert system does is it's kind of like it avoids the problem by going beyond the realm of the prerequisite. Right? It's almost like saying if you're going to study for a test, I don't want you to go out. So we lock the door and throw away the key. Right? It's not done today, and there's no wisdom to do it. It cannot be done. The tradition is lost. So to think that one could do it is fooling themselves. That was what I originally had planned to talk about tonight. Is this thing called shituf. What it is, it's making that error that the person is empowered to do higher things than they can. And you have to be honest with yourself of where you're holding. So one of the big refutations of false religious doctrine is, I saw this in Matthew. I generally don't get into New Testament stuff. I just happened to see that part of it when I was in Texas on tour. Someone showed it to me. And it said that when Yeshua went to heaven, blah, 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 the word used is Yitzchak. So that word Yitzchak is a completely spiritual realm. It wouldn't even make sense to say that you went there as a humanoid. It would be like me saying I went into air. I evaporated myself into air. It's a nonsensical thing. There's no reason to even think that. You understand? It's like saying I'm tired of living in this world. I decide I want to go live on a comet. You can't just go live on a comet. So it's not a humanoid reality. It's a completely angelic and spiritual plane of existence. It doesn't even make sense to aspire to such a thing. Again, it'd be like saying I want to be a baseball player and I'm going to hit a home run every single time. It's just, no one can aspire. It's not that you don't want to aspire to that. No one would even think to aspire to such a thing. It's beyond rational anything. So that the concept doesn't exist. Therefore, to feed into that concept is really to say, I'm going to enter God's kingdom where God himself dwells. It doesn't make sense. It's not what we're designed as souls to experience. Right? It's like saying, I want to get married so much so I'm going to have a sex change to know my wife better. No one would say that. Can you imagine someone said that?
Maybe nowadays.
Nowadays, but even that, they're trying. You see, it gets worse and worse. You know? It's a nonsensical thought. Like, I'm going to know God so... It's Tower of Babylon. I want to know God so much so... No. That's what the Torah calls shituf. It's a vulgar place of the mind to think that thought. And the Torah is the definition of not shituf. And the theology and the story of the Torah is to achieve oneness with it through proper channels. So, on the lower level, even if someone could properly say the name of God, why would you assume that you should? It's like saying, if I could hit a home run a mile away, why would that be the benchmark of hitting a home run? Won't like 500 feet suffice and win the ball game for your team? You know, it doesn't make sense to say, I'm going to hit it to Mars. No one says that. No one prepares for that. So the Torah has pathways that mankind is supposed to stick to which King David says, right, walk in the ways of God. And that is this world that we're in. We're built for this world. We're not built to leave this world. And in this world, there are laws of mankind that are for mankind. So, again, on an even lower level, even though the Torah permits like 18 wives for a king, or many wives, does that mean we should go out and marry many women because the Torah said we can? No. When the rabbis remove that option, that is not to say it's the laws of man. There's a reason for that. And it makes sense. We have enough problem. The Midrash says in the future the pig will be kosher. Does that mean the Midrash is saying then we should go out and eat pig? No. Just because it's allowed does not mean that's a green light to say go ahead. There is such a thing as self-discipline and self-control and acting within known parameters. This concept in Mishlei, Proverbs, is called Tzedek and Mishpat. Mishpat is justice. So it says, do not exceed 50 kilometers per hour in this zone. So what would you do? You would not exceed 50 kilometers in that zone. What if there was no sign and there were little kids playing? Would you then go as fast as you can because there's no sign? Or would you say tzedek, self-righteousness or self-control of a righteous quality, would enter my mind and it would say, you know what? I don't think I should speed here. It's better if I don't. The Torah has two kinds of laws on this way of thinking. Mishpat and tzedek. Some mishpat, the Torah says clearly, do not have illicit relationships. So we don't. And there's no wiggle room. Some laws, the Torah does not make obvious and revealed and known. And part of God's judgment in this world is conveying the wisdom for the people to know by themselves what to do and what not to do. The rabbis come and sanctify those laws, and unfortunately, a lot of times, it becomes kind of indoctrinated as a type of Sharia law. And that's no good either. Then it just makes people hate the law. But the Torah wants you to be governed by yourself sometimes. There's a lot of loopholes. God is merciful when God allows you to be someone who partakes of His mercy. So to get King David in the world, God had to make a system, kind of an honor system. And God, this was a concept called honoring God. You don't abuse the honor system. And this is one of those things that you don't abuse the system. So to bring King David in the world, that honor system was used, and David suffered from that honor system. Everybody wanted to kill him. It never yielded a good moment, that honor system. So this is one of those systems. So what the Torah has allowed through rabbinic continuation is to marry a Jew, to be classified as a non-idolater. It's called conversion. Ruth converted, but without some kind of certificate and documentation, because she didn't need that. It was called the honor system. She got to the level where she was passing through an honorable system. Today, the honor system goes through the Jewish people, Jewish religion. That point should be understood, correct? But the Torah definition of non-Jew doesn't exist. There's no such thing as a non-Jew. What there is an idolater or a non-idolater. And the wisdom of non-idolatry came down at Sinai. Rejecting Shituf is rejecting idolatry on the highest level. But because it exists in what's called Dat Yisrael, the Jewish religion, by definition, it's not the same as Ruth. So a Ger Toshav is the biblical or the Talmudic righteous non-Jew, i.e. righteous non-idolater. But it functions in Judaism. And in Judaism there are prescribed ways of performance. We have laws of Ger Toshav. Intermarriage is not one of those laws. To be on the level of Ruth, one would have to ask the question, if Ruth was alive today, would she be the ger in your gate and demand her biblical rights? Or would she operate in Judaism and either convert or remain Ger Toshav? What do you think?
Should be forced to convert. In today's world.
Well, or just not marry Boaz. So what do you think she would do? Would she be in Judaism or non-Judaism? Judaism. The world has bought into Judaism. We're playing with Jewish rules and regulations. That's the system we've gone with. Judaism as it is today did not exist in the times of Ruth. But the principle did exist. So, you can understand what I'm saying here, yeah?
But there is a lot of stuff that end by rabbis.
What's that?
There is a lot of stuff that end by rabbis on their Judaism.
So that's where we suffer exile. We have an exile neurosis that requires redemption solutions. Right?
Yeah.
We need redemption because we're stuck in exile. So the rabbinic system will eventually exile itself, like any law system. And I think this country experienced it more than most, did it not? Every system experiences this. If you play chess, a guy wins a chess match, it becomes chess theory. At the end of a couple of years, you are playing only chess theory. No one plays out of the box. So then the question becomes, what is the best way to get to redemption through the Jewish system? And that's what people are trying to figure out. So more than bucking the system completely and going against the system, remember we said, searching for the truth in that regard will get you exiled from Judaism and the Jewish people. So, will God punish you for that? Maybe not. But does God want you to do that? Absolutely not. God wants it done with the right way, within peace, darkei shalom. So the prescribed way of the non-Jew is through Judaism. The Lubavitcher Rebbe writes this, Dat Yisrael, Dat HaEmes, the Jewish religion. That's what was given at Sinai. Jewish religion. All religions really have to go to the wayside except for the Jewish religion. And at the time of Ruth, there wasn't a King David yet. So there was not a temple yet. Ger Toshav becomes sanctified and synonymous with the temple. See the difference? So they were still building the nation at the time of Ruth. And now the nation is built. So those pathways are not operative anymore. There's a Ramban who explains what God used to love, now he hates, and what God used to hate, now he loves. So the Ger Toshav is the prescribed path for the non-Jew. Conversion is also an option. But not everybody wants to convert, and we don't proselytize. And making converts is not what it's about. So therefore the limitations that come with Ger Toshav, what that achieves is, again, the relationship, a little bit less intimate, but that's the healthy level of relationship. It's called learning and teaching Torah. It's not called making King David. We already made a King David. It served its one bullet in the gun and did it. And there's a lot of things in law that were like that. Yaakov marrying two sisters. Should we go out and marry sisters? No. There's lots of examples. So wrap it up. Questions? All right.
And do about kids.
Yeah. All right. Yeah.
All
right.
right.
So I'll close on this note then. The Ger Toshav is the Jewish religion's solution and clear path, despite its religious flavor, that justifies and allows the relationship between Jew and non-Jew, in this case non-Shituv, so Jew and non-idolater, to learn the Torah that is appropriate in that setting. And the Lubavitcher Rebbe says and to quote him and to finish this talk, that relationship reveals the Torah of Mashiach, and it ushers in a speedy redemption. All right?
So that's how we bring about the redemption.
That's what the Rebbe says. I tend to agree with it. Yeah. Right.